All right, guys. Well, welcome to week 2. I believe this is round 5 off the top of my head. I've lost too many times we've done this now. Anyway, it's week 2. And, we've got this pretty dialed in. And each round is the same foundations, but each week is unique in its own right. Because we're looking at leveling up. We're looking at dialing this in and getting bigger and better and sometimes doing things a little bit different. It's not always about doing things better. And first off, I just want to give a big, huge shout out to Dave and Jade for hosting last week's call while I was jet setting around Japan with my awesome son. I got some awesome feedback from there. So you both did a really brilliant job. So thank you very much for stepping up to the plate there and looking after that call. And g'day, Renata May, Celeste, Jaya, Daryl. It's good to see you on the call. And this has been recorded. And we'll be hosted in the group as well. So if you're watching the replay later on, just let us know in the comments that you're catching the replay. But see, last week, and we start with week 1 with all about nailing your niche, right? Because it's very got to get very clear on who it is you serve. Now, this week, week 2, it's all about helping you to really master your message, to find your values, your vision, your mission. These are the backbones of every personal brand. We need to know who it is we're serving, but more importantly, we need to know how we serve them and why you serve them. Why you? So let's get into it. For those of you who don't know me, I'm pretty sure you know me all by now. My name's Jeff Ross, Caffeinated Kangaroo, and stoked to dive into today's topic. Today's topic, pretty sum it up, is to help you to find your voice and to master your message. So last week, as I mentioned, we focused on who it is we serve, but here's the truth. Knowing your niche isn't enough. If you don't know how to show up with confidence, with clarity, with connection, you're always going to miss the point. And this is where I see a lot of people struggle with this, is they know who it is they're serving, but then they just get stuck into the ambassador sort of, carbon copy, cookie cutter, look at me, and you just sort of end up being like everybody else. Today, we're going to answer the question, why do you show up? And how do you build a brand and a message that connects with your audience? If you've ever felt like your content is invisible or you're constantly second guessing your messaging, this is the session for you. And this is going to change the game for you. So let's dive deeper. Let's help you to make your story your superpower, because this is what separates you out from the rest of the crowd. Nobody can compete with your experience, with your story, with your wisdom. See, what we do and how we do it doesn't necessarily change. But this is the voice framework, right? Where we go deep and we also rise above to help us to get above the crowd. So the voice framework, if you've never heard it before, let me just recap on that. What is this voice framework? Well, this is basically 16 years of Jeff Ross's intellectual property all put into one acronym to be able to help you to build the backbone for your personal brand, one that stands out, one that stands for your voice. Voice stands for V for values, O for origin, I for influence, C for clarity, and E for expression. Let's unpack that a lot deeper. So V for values. It also really sets you up for your vision. And I'm going to show you how you can leverage AI and some AI prompts that I put together in this pack to be able to help you to really pull all this together. I just want to go through the theory and the basis of the foundations today to lay the fundamentals, and then we'll shift gears and get into the practical. But V is for values. Basically you need to put your content and people need to know what you stand for and what you stand against. People are those people with convictions. Confidence comes from being convicted. And so if you had to choose just 3 core values that guide how you show up in life and in business, what would they be? Now, that's a question I want you to sit with and come back and watch this later, but jot that down later on. But just for example, right, my 3 core values are very clear, and you can see the way that I show up online is me living out my values. My first value is ultimate ownership, living life above the line, ownership, accountability, responsibility. Below the line is blame, excuse, and denial. So everything that sets the tone for everything that I touch, that I taste, that I put my hand to, it's always above the line culture. It's living life in ultimate ownership. The second core value for me is transparency. So not that, yes, that I am transparent with my words and what you see is what you get and that type of thing. But what I mean by transparency is when you see me, you see through me. I become like translucent. I become like glass to help you to get where you need to be. See, I'm not the thing. I'm not the tool. I'm not the product, if you will. All I am is the bridge. Help you to get where you need to be to get the result that you're looking for. I'm just the guide on the journey. So that's the transparency piece. And then the third value for me is everything in love. You know, if we don't do it from a space of passion, from a space of heart-centered love, what's the point? G'day, Vaughan. Thanks for joining the call. So it's everything from love, and love is fun, it's joy, it's peace, but it's also like all the fruits of characteristics of love. So what are your values? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? Because people will follow those with convictions. And then O stands for origin. You know, every superhero, right? You read the character stories of the books and the characters, they've all got an origin story. This is the heart of your connection strategy. And I want you to get clear on that, because the one word of your marketing, the goal of your marketing is not to sell. The goal of your marketing is to connect, to have heart-to-heart conversations. When people trust you, they like you, they know you, what does that all sum up? That's all about connection, right? When people are connected to you, they will buy from you because of one thing, trust. So how do we start that connection? Well, we start that connection with us being vulnerable, raw, real, and owning our story. You know, people don't connect with success. What they connect with is the struggle that led to the breakthrough. They connect to you being the guide of the story. If I reflect back, way back when I first started on my journey, making me sound old, I think I'm starting to get the grey hairs to prove it. You know, there's a really good book that I read by Russell Brunson, .com Secrets. And it's basically become like the foundations for one of my marketing Bibles, if you will. And he talks about the epiphany bridge in this conversation. You know, this bridge is basically the origin story, right? So here's a bit of a framework for you to start to dial in your story. And once I said, we're going to talk about the theory side of things, and then we'll get into the practical later on. And I'll give you the prompts to be able to help flesh all this together. But write this down. I want you to write down this framework, right? You want to come to the space with your backstory. You know, where did you start? And, you know, your starting point of your story. Then you want to talk about the wall. You know, what was that block? What was that challenge? What was that frustration? And inside of that challenge, you know, everything doesn't happen to us, right? It happens for us. Inside of that challenge, there's an epiphany. There's a light bulb that goes off. There's answers that come to your questions. Or more questions will lead you down that space of clarity, but an epiphany starts. And then from the epiphany, you now start to get the plan. You start to know where you're at, you know where you want to be, and you start to formulate a bit of a plan to get there. Now, at the end of this story, you're starting to focus on the result. The result is the outcome, the transformation that you took you from before to after. And at the end of every story, there should always be a call to an action. Now, call to action is not say, hey, come buy my shit. A call to action, it could be something along the lines of a question, a dialogue. You're bridging into the next piece of the story. So, you know, a little question to sit here and ask yourself when you're going back through this and reflect on this is, what was the moment I hit a wall and what shifted everything for me? You know, these are some of the prompts that we can start to ask ourselves to start formulating this story. Don't worry, we're going to come back to that. As I said, I'm just laying the foundations. And then I moves into influence. But influence is not about bragging. You know, influence is not about being a celebrity or a rock star, right? Influence is a belief of transfer. It's a belief transfer, right? It's your energy transfer. That's influence. See, leadership is in nothing more, nothing less. And we break that down. What is influence? Influence is an energy transfer of belief. It's helping you to take my belief and adopt it to become your belief. That is what true influence is. It's shared proof. It's edification. It's community wins. You know, it's service, right? So a question you can ask yourself around this influence piece is, how have I helped others? What social proof can I share that aligns with my mission, my vision, my values? You're starting to see this all come together, right, with your voice. C is for clarity. Confused mind, people don't buy. You know, that's the one. So what is the one product? What is the one problem? What is the one solution you solve? This is how we start to put our message in front of the right people. But it starts with your values, backed up in starting to build that bridge of connection with your story. And then your call to action pieces. Now you've got that shared belief. You've got that influence piece working for you. You now move into the clarity piece. And then E is for expression. You know, this is how you show up, your raw self, your authentic self. This is your personality, your tone, your rhythm, and your delivery. You know, people should recognize your voice and read your content straight away. You know, we can talk about, you know, things like the caffeinated kangaroo and the pumped up platypus and the Lux Lioness. You know, these are things to help associate that, but they're not our brand. They're brand associators, brand identifiers that help us to express our voice, right? You know, and you look at the Lux Lioness, it's prestige, it's luxe, it's that next level. But then when you work with Jade, you understand that that is her voice starting to be, you know, emulated and coming to life through that expression. You know, the caffeinated kangaroo, always moving forward, always full of energy and passion, right? And it's, you know, ADHD on overdrive sometimes, that we're always moving forward to a common goal. That's, you start to see those elements being expressed through our content. So what makes your tone, voice, style unique? What phrases, what's humor, what perspective do you bring that's yours, it's yours alone? You know, and that comes through your own experience, that comes through your own wisdom. I like Jade's bouncing all over the world. Yes, seems a bit like that at the moment. Right? So it's that laptop lifestyle, yeah? And so start to bring these elements and start to bring in your Vaughnism, your Reneeism, your Celestism, your Jeffism, your Jadeisms. Make up words, you know, because these are things that are pattern interrupts. And when I use the word boom source all the time, you know how many people come to me when I open up with an introduction saying, hey, great to connect. I trust that you're having a boom source day. People come to me and say, Jeff, that's a great opener, but hey, I've got to ask, what is boom source? You know, so it starts a conversation. You know, so everything that you're doing, right, it's all about starting a connection and deepening that connection, building on that trust. You know, think of a bank, right? And this bank has two jobs, deposits and withdrawals. Now, this bank, you know, you want to make sure your bank is full. So when you have a withdrawal, you're withdrawing from surplus, not a deficit. That is our job. Building a relationship and connection with people is we've got to build up that trust bank. So because when you do life with people and you start to, you know, be coach or mentor or guiding or leadership, whatever that looks like, you're going to have a bank full of, either it's going to be full or is it going to be empty because you're always taking out and never depositing. This is what marketing is all about. It's about building that connection, building that influence, building that trust bank up. So when we do stuff up, when we do make mistakes, you know, through life, the good, the bad, the ugly of it all, that it's not going to be as detrimental as it would be if we were just, you know, withdrawing from something that was already empty. You know, make sure that the cup is overflowing, so to speak. So that is the voice framework, just to break that down. For those of you who have never heard that before, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. For those of you who sort of heard it now the second or third time, you know, keep your minds open. You know, your minds only really work, you know, like a parachute. You know, they only work when they're open, right? So it's that 1%er sometimes, and it's that repetitive learning. And this is why we have people come back doing second, third, fourth round, fifth round even, you know, to get that deeper level of understanding. So let's move on to the next section. The next section here of helping you to find your voice is learning to understand where your Ikigai sweet spot is. So what is Ikigai? Well, if you read the book Good to Great, Jim Collins unpacks this in a lot of detail. It's a really great book. Listen to the audio book or read it or however you do it. Jim Collins, Good to Great. He calls this the hedgehog principle, or what the Japanese actually call is actually a term called Ikigai or Ikigai. I can't pronounce it properly. It's Japanese. Anyway, it basically means the sweet spot. It means the purpose of your life. And so when I bring up here, I'm going to bring up this whiteboard. I'm going to try something a little bit different here. I'm going to see how we can make this work now. I'm not an artist, so please don't hold this against me, but I'm going to try and draw 4 circles, right? So 1 circle. Draw another circle here. I'm going to draw another circle here. And I draw another circle here. Now, let's say those circles are all connecting. Right smack bang at that intersection of that middle spot, right about here, is the sweet spot of this whole conversation, right? So this circle here, what you want to write and you want to talk about things is what you love. Everything about what you love. You know, and you start to do a bit of a mind map, right, for things about what you love. The next one here you want to put in here is, let's bring this one over here. Hang on. You go bye-bye. Start again. All right, we're going to talk about this one over here. This one here is all about what you are good at. Right, so what are you good at? Well, what could you be the best in the world at? You know, what do you love doing? So what do you love? What are you good at? We've all got our skill sets, right? We've all got those things that we're great at or we could be the best at the world at. The next one here we want to do is, let me see if we do that one. Yeah, I can do it. Cool. We can do, what do people need? Right, so you put down here, what do you love? What are you good at? What do people need? So in your world, in your sphere of influence, what are the challenges that you see that people need solutions to? I'm going to come back here and I'll give you my example in a second. And then the next one here is, and you can use AI to help you out with this too, by the way. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just pointing in the right direction here at the moment. But sometimes the best, you know, intelligence we have is the tool between our ears. You know, AI is just a partnership tool, right? It's not there to do it for us. But the next question here is what people pay for, right? So what solutions, right? So what do I love? I love serving. I love guiding. I love leadership. I love, you know, connecting people to the right tools, to the right resources to help them to be empowered and equipped. And, you know, I love helping people find their voice. What am I good at? Well, I've been at this game for 16 years. I've been a student of attraction marketing, sales, you know, customer value journeys, you know, the technical side of things. If you look at Jade, you know, she's great at building funnels, but she's probably one of the best in the world that I know of in the design space. You know, she just has such an eye to detail and creates these $1 million brands left, right, and center. You know, Dave, when it comes to systems and automation, you know, in operations, you know, I believe he's probably one of the best in the world at his space and leverage AI in that space. So what are you good at? Or what could you be the best in the world at if you applied 10, 5, 20, 30 years at? What gets you up and out of bed each day? And what do you just love to learn? Then it's also about what do people need, right? And this is where I think people don't spend enough time on and they just skip over it because, you know, you aren't going to find what people pay for if you don't know the problems that you can solve. I'm very clear on, you know, after doing this for 16 years, the number one thing that I know I can solve is helping people find their voice to build a person, you know, to get that clarity, to be a hero maker, not just a hero. You know, and that's what people pay for. People pay for clarity. People pay for guidance. People pay for support. You know, those type of things, right? So in the middle of that, that's where you start to build your personal brand and you find your voice of that in your Ikigai spot. Yeah, they did. So coming back to this, let's remove that now. Close the whiteboard. There we go. Cool. We'll do Q&A later. I'm just going to mute everybody for now. So, where you've got your Ikigai spot here, your voice sits in the middle of all of this. And this is where you build your brand up. And when you're aligned, you're putting out that energy to help you to attract and be magnetic. I said up here in the influence piece, right? People, all this is about a transfer of belief. If you can't believe in what you do and serve people in that space, how can you be aligned? How can you attract people? When you're off on this, you repel people. So this is where you find yourself rowing up shit creek without a paddle. I would say this is because you're out of alignment. When you're serving from your heart-centered space, your genius zone, the things that give you goosebumps and you just love what you do, I would say that you're serving in your sweet spot, in your Ikigai, in your heart-centered purpose. And that's where you need to be. So the question you need to ask yourself here with everything that you're doing is, where am I currently out of alignment in my brand and in my content? Because once you get clarity on this, everything that you show up, the way that you show up, the how you show up, the why you show up, the where you show up, all of it either helps you to repel or to be in alignment. So it's understanding this sweet spot in this Ikigai spot. And once you get clarity on this, we can now start to build the character and your message off the back of this. So let me break this down super simply for you. Everybody knows a great movie, right? We remember those movies that stick with us through our childhood and through it moving on. And every great movie has a main character that we fall in love with. Think of Iron Man. Think of Elsa. Think of Moana. Think of Spider-Man. Think of Darth Vader. Think of Luke Skywalker. Were they perfect? Far from it. But what they all had in common, right, is these characters were real. See, that's where people attract to. They attract to that real rawness. And we go on the journey with those characters. And so this is where I really want you to help you to start to build your brand around the kind of character that is you. And sorry, I think of Claude, you think of ChatGPT. Good on you, geek. So we're wanting to build the character around you that is you. Russell Brunson in his book, .com Secrets X, he calls this the attractive character. Someone that people can relate to, trust, and follow. Now, that character doesn't have to be you. I highly recommend that it is you and you put your face out, because we're in the network affiliate marketing sort of coaching arena, right? And people want to build a business with you. But look at like brands like McDonald's, Subway, for example. They don't have a personal character, a personal brand per se. They have a big brand. So you've got to figure it out what it is for you that works best for you. But if you look at Subway, the attractive character that they had in Subway was the big fat guy. Remember when they launched Subway? They had this big fat guy and they shared his story of eating nothing but Subway to help him lose weight. So they created an image and a brand around this attractive character that, hey, if people just eat Subway, it's fast food, but it's healthy food, you'll be able to have a healthy lifestyle. Even though we now know it's full of crap, but whatever, right? That was the brand and the image that they created. McDonald's created this brand and image around Ronald McDonald, and it was a family restaurant. It was fast, it was convenience, but the attractive character was Ronald McDonald and his friends. So that's what the story was wrapped around that, right? So talking about your origin story, who you were before is where you need to start. You look at the iconic Star Wars movie. We come to a scene, that very first movie, it comes to a scene on Tatooine in the desert with Luke Skywalker just about to become a Jedi. But it doesn't talk, it doesn't start about his childhood. It starts basically in the story of just about where he's about to embark on his hero's journey. This is where your journey starts. It is the messy middle. It is the pain. It is the moment things are not working. This is where people relate to, right? Because this is real. For example, I was burnt out, stuck in, a 9 to 5 job, watching my kids grow up without me. These are prompts that you can start your story. I'm 140 kilos overweight, which I've got no energy. I'm tired all the time, missing out on my kids' activities. I was depressed. I was lonely. I was angry. Whatever it is, your story needs to start who you were before. So what was life like before you found your breakthrough, before you found your system, before you found the thing that is now helping you to transform? If you break down the next part of this story is the identity shift. The moment everything started to click, something changed, maybe slowly, maybe suddenly, but you had a wake up moment. You hit a wall. You had that epiphany moment, right? One night at 2 a.m., I realized I didn't want to be missing another bedtime story, or something had to change. What was that light bulb moment? What was that thing that made you say, enough is enough? I lost my job the other day, and, now I'm, struggling to make ends meet. I had a horse jump on my neck. You probably all heard my story, right? I had a horse jump on my neck. It forced me out of the traditional workforce. I was put into a position where I had to go, oh, crap, how am I going to provide for my family? I just started. That was the before moment. The next part of that story was the moment clicked, was the part of the story as I move into, is I saw people making money online, and I thought to myself, hey, I got nothing but time on my hand. I can do that too. See where I'm going with this? The next part of this here is the vehicle of change, whether it's your method, whether it's your system, or whether it's a product. See, when you can put your vehicle, your product, your system, your method as the bridge to change, the vehicle to change, this is where people start to see themselves starting to connect to your story. If we're always focused on features and benefits of our products, all we're doing is really promoting the facts. People buy from basis of emotion, and they buy from a basis of people wanting to be saved, to have a safe place, to be seen, to be heard, to be known. The logic piece is how we, basically connect the dots and make sure that this is the right thing for us and move forward. But see, a lot of us, when we just promote what we do and sometimes how we do it, we're always heavily focused on the logic. We've got to start from why we do it and move into that emotion piece. So when you can position your product, your system, your method as the vehicle of change, this is where you start to create that bridge from Sucksville to Awesometown, and you become the bridge. You found or created a way forward. You found something that was your roadmap. This is what you share with others now. I found a better way using AI, content strategy, and attraction marketing, and it actually started to work for me. So what helps you get out of Stucksville, and what do you use now to help others? These are questions you can start to ask yourself. Then you're moving into the future vision of where this is going. So where you're going and who you're taking with you. This is why we start week 1 of understanding the who piece, right? The audience piece. Because now you can start to marry this together. Now I helped out burnout dads online business, help build online businesses so they can present. Now I help, burnt out dads build online businesses so they can be present for their families too. What kind of life are you building now? And who do you want to invite with you on that ride? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be clear of where you're going and who you're taking with you. Your job isn't to sell stuff. Your job, and every marketer's job, is to cast a vision. If we can all stop trying to sell, and we could just continue to create content and connections and relationships and be a leader who is creating influence, which is about casting shared belief, which is all about casting a vision. Our job is to guide. Our job is to show people how our products, our service, or our system is the bridge for them to get where they need to be. So how can I invite others into transformation, not just a transaction, is always a question that I always like to ask myself when I put any piece of content forward. Say it out loud. I'm here to sell. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help people go from XYZ to ABC using method, product, system, or service. These are taglines that you can start to put together that become the basis of helping you to find and elevate and leverage your voice, which is your personal brand, right? So let's dive into some of the practical session here, and let's bring this voice to life by using AI. Like, that's what we're all here for, right? Is to learn how to master and partner with AI. So we're going to use ChatGPT to have a two-way conversation and create a bit of a digital assistant here to help create the foundations and the fundamentals for your brand. I'm going to get ChatGPT to act like a personal brand coach, and we're going to go back and forth here. So let me just quickly pull this up. Make sure I'm sharing my screen with you all. Hang on. Let's try this one. Why can't I find my screen? You guys see my screen okay? You see ChatGPT? Yep. Brilliant. Hang on. Sharing the wrong. So I'm going to grab the Google tab. Oh, I see. I didn't scroll down far enough. Just go back to share screen. Interesting. Where's it gone? What can you see there now, Jade?
I got Listeners don't miss today's call.
Where's it gone? Sorry, two screens, so tabs open. Yeah, okay, yeah, cool. All right, so we got ChatGPT, right? Okay. Move this Zoom thing out of my way. That's what's getting me. All right. So we're going to have a conversation back and forth with ChatGPT, and you just follow this example. I'm going to give you access to a prompt pack to be able to help you to have this same conversation. So let me just quickly set this up. Hey, Chatty, I could just confirm, can you hear me okay? Hang on. I also need to be sharing the sound part.
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear. And if you're planning to share any audio, just make sure you've got that sound sharing option ticked.
Jay, can you give me a thumbs up? Could you hear Chatty okay then? Brilliant. All right, let's get started. So Chatty, I want you to help me to bring our voice to life, with our voice framework that we've been discussing together. We're going to use this to be able to help people to build our personal brand, right? So I've got our awesome LLD community here, and they're just going to watch me in an interactive sort of conversation to help guide them and point them in the right direction. So Chatty, I want you to help me build my personal brand, and I want you to ask me have a two-way conversation and help me ask me questions to define my voice using the voice framework, values, origin, influence, clarity, and expression. And I want you to help me to go back and forth with a few different questions, right? And I'm going to give you the questions to have to have the framework here to have a two-way conversation, and then we're going to bring this together. So let it guide. I want you to help me guide me with questions. And obviously, you're the coach. You're the person who's got the knowledge here. So bring in your expertise as well. But I want you to maybe look at asking questions around like, what are my top 3 values? What are the challenge or turning point that defines the origin story? What have you helped? Where have I helped people, and what results have they seen? What's the core message? How does a friend describe your communication style? So, Chatty, acting like that personal brand coach, I want you to have me, two-way conversation here with me to help me to bring out our personal brand voice. Are you ready to go?
Absolutely. I'm ready to go. Let's dive right in.
I'm sorry, I should ask too. Ask a question at a time, let me answer it, and then come back with the next question so like we can have a two-way conversation. You good for that?
Absolutely. We'll take it one question at a time. Let's start with the first one. What are your top 3 values that guide how you show up in life and business?
Yeah, great. So I want you to also, maybe just take this back a step. Let's say I don't know my 3 values. Can you ask me a couple of questions around help me to define what my values are?
Absolutely. Let's break it down a bit further. If you're not quite sure about your top 3 values, let's explore what really matters to you. What are the principles or qualities you admire in other people? And what kind of behaviors or actions really resonate with you?
Yeah, cool. The thing that really resonates with me and I see my way I show up every day is through probably the best way to describe it is like living life above the line, ownership, accountability, and responsibility versus living life like below the line, which is blame, excuse, and denial. That sort of sets the tone for everything that I do, that I touch. I should also mention too, I just want to use this as a quick training exercise to point our community here in the right direction. And we've literally only got like 10 minutes to do this exercise. So let's just keep it all short and sweet and show them what's possible.
Got it. Living above the line with ownership, accountability, and responsibility sounds like a solid set of values. Let's keep this exercise short and sweet so the community can see what's possible. Next up, let's talk about your origin story. What was a challenge or turning point in your journey that really defined where you are today?
Yeah, most of the people that know me, like basically I was forced out of the traditional workforce back in 2010. I had a horse jump on my neck, and the doctors pretty much wrote me off after that injury and said there was nothing much that they could do for me, and had to live the rest of my life on a disability pension. Well, I'd only just started a family, just got newly married, and I thought, well, that's not a great life, is it? And coming out the other end of that conversation, I saw people making money online, and I thought, hang on, well, maybe I could do that. So it all started with that, that burden, if you will, to help me to provide an income to provide for my family and create that freedom, so we weren't caught up in just that poverty sort of disability space, that only just making ends meet. So I started with a desire and a heart to wanting to provide for my family.
That's a powerful origin story, and it's clear how that turning point shaped your journey. You took something incredibly challenging and turned it into a drive to create freedom and provide for your family. Now let's talk about influence. How have you helped others along the way, and what results have they seen from your guidance?
So what I'm very clear on today, 16 years into this journey, is one of the things that I know that I do is I help take the tech stress away. I help guide people and point them in the right direction. And I don't know, it's because I actually don't have a marketing or business degree. Like, I left school at year 9. I have the ability to be able to look at something complicated and something, that most people get overwhelmed because of the technical side of things, and able to basically simplify that, to be able to help people to follow the bouncing ball, if you will, and point them in the right direction so they can be empowered and equipped and learn how to master the tools. I basically learning how to build websites back from coding days, and building funnels and everything else like that. Have the uncanny ability to work with people from all walks and shapes of life, to be able to help them to learn how to master these tools as well. Our older students, 83, my youngest students, 12. And so, and I just love strategy. I love clarity, helping people get clarity of where to go next and to take the stepping stones, and helping to build a life by design and on purpose, and helping the people to find their voice, to leverage their voice, to elevate their voice, to go and build a business off the back of that personal brand, to help them to, create a life by design.
That's fantastic. You've turned your journey into a way to empower others, simplifying the complicated and guiding people to build a life by design. Now let's move on to clarity. If you had just 10 seconds to explain what you do, what's that one-liner that would make people go, I need this?
So my one-liner is I help take frustrated affiliate network marketers, transform them into laptop lifestyle legends, teaching them how to master social selling, how to leverage AI, how to build a personal brand so they can find and elevate and leverage their voice to create a business by life by design.
That's a strong one-liner. You've got a clear and powerful message that shows exactly how you help frustrated marketers transform into lifestyle legends. Finally, let's dive into expression. What makes your tone, style, or voice unique, and what kind of phrases or humor do you use that people instantly recognize as yours?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely an Australian male, father of three amazing boys. So known as the laptop lifestyle dad, and I love my dad jokes, making my boys cringe and, leading you with some humor. I'm ADHD on overdrive. I'm very passionate. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and what you see is what you get. And I just love life. I love helping people to serve them, to be empowered and be a hero maker, not just a hero.
That's brilliant. Your personality and humor really shine through, and it's clear you lead with authenticity and passion. With all these pieces in place, your values, origin, influence, clarity, and expression, you've got a strong foundation for your personal brand. Say you can bring all this together and guide others to do the same.
Cool. Thank you. So now, Chatty, I want you to help me to take everything that we've just discussed and help me to get clarity on my three core values, what my personal vision is, and what my mission can be to be able to help serve this.
Absolutely. Let's break it down. Based on everything we've talked about, it sounds like your three core values might include ownership, authenticity, and empowerment. For your personal vision, you're aiming to help others create a life by design where they're not just surviving, but thriving. And your mission is all about simplifying the complex, guiding people to find and elevate their voice, and leading them to build something meaningful. Let's use these as a starting point and refine them as you continue to grow and share your journey.
Cool. Awesome. Well, as you can see, that's just basically, I just had a two-way conversation. I'm going to give you the prompts to be able to use to have a similar conversation with ChatGPT to be able to go start to build the fundamentals and the foundations for your brand. Right. So this is about helping you point you in the right direction, to empower you to help you to come up with the origin story, using your values as turning points to help you to summarize your brand, in three sentences as soundbite, to help you to start write your Facebook bio that instantly connects with your audience. You start to leverage AI to become that personal assistant for you to be able to help point you in the right direction. So I'm just going to wrap this up and give you now access to our prompt pack to be able to help point you in the right direction with this one. And basically, so this is your homework. Can I just get I can't see you guys on my screen anymore. Can someone just unmute themselves and just acknowledge that they can see this okay?
Yep, can see it.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right, so this is basically your homework for week 2. You're wanting to basically just set ChatGPT up, just to go back to ChatGPT if you've never used it before. Just you come here, start new chat. Make sure you've got the paid version, the $20 a month version, because you won't have you need to have that for the voice mode. And you're just going to click on voice mode, and you're just going to have a two-way conversation. You give Chatty the prompt, and it just starts to have the dialogue. So I've given you the prompt packs here designed to start this two-way conversation. So you can say your first one, you say, hey, Chatty, I'm working my personal brand today. Can you coach me through using the voice framework, blah, 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 by asking these questions to help me refine and, my brand voice, and then basically go through and, start having a two-way conversation with Chatty. So, refine these, to define your voice. So if I had to choose 3 core values that guide how I show up in life and business, what would they be? And if you're unsure, some of the questions that Chatty asks you, just ask it back. I need you to simplify that. I need you to explain this as a 10-year-old can understand. I want you to create some clarity for me on what you actually need to be able to help me, to help you, to help me, that type of thing. So you just have that general two-way conversation back and forth with Chatty to be able to support you on that. So these are just pointers to point you in the right direction. So you're going to start to define your origin story. We talked about, this morning, your backstory, the wall. So all of these prompts are designed to help you to pull this together. And then you're going to find your Ikigai sweet spot off the back of that. talk about what you love, what I'm great at, and help to give the more information that you can give Chatty, the more specific that you can give, the better it will start to serve you and point you in the right direction. You know, you can use it to help you to build out the Lego blocks to craft your story here with your origin story. And then you wanted to start to get ChatGPT to sound like you as well. Well, lead with your values, lead with your brand voice, that type of thing. And then so you can leverage it here with other content that you've put in as well. That'll help to understand your tone and your voice and your vibe there. You can start to leverage, NLP, deep reflections as well to help you to get into that emotional space of it all. So that's your prompt pack there to pull this whole conversation together. The goal of today's exercise is for you to get clear on your voice, so you know how to serve your people and why you serve your people and how you show up every day. So that's a bit of a wrap. So let's just go around the room. Any burning questions? My question for you is, what was the light bulb epiphany moment in today's discussion? So Mel, I'll start with you, champion.
Sorry. I think those four, like the four, what you love, what you are good at, and the other two, but then putting that voice framework right in the middle of it. So I actually separated my circles and put voice in the center.
Brilliant. Love that. Yeah, that's good. So how's that going to help you shift the game?
I think by having that clear list and revisiting that, actually maybe like even printing that up and putting it like on my wall just here or something like that, so I can go back to it when I'm looking at talking to somebody about something. If I get stuck somewhere, I've got this list of whys, I guess.
Yeah, your business plan and your marketing plan, they're two separate plans. Your business is more about the formal. What we're talking about here is more about the marketing plan. Your marketing plan should be so simple that it fits on one sheet.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit on one sheet, it's too complicated. So I love what you're talking about there. That's a very simple one sheet marketing plan to help you with your sprint.
Yeah.
Love it.
Cool.
What was the thing that stood out for you today? And sorry, Mel, did you have any questions before we move on?
No.
Vaughan, over to you, mate.
I'm exactly the same as Mel. I think taking that voice framework, which I think is a really good concept, but then having those four circles, which is sort of, you can back check what you're putting out there and go, am I putting myself out there in the right manner? That, because we're sort of looking particularly through that voice framework to sort of I guess figure people's emotions and stuff like that.
That's it.
It's a real good check to go, okay, what do I love? Yep, tick. What am I good at? Yep, done. And then, what do people need? And then, and then what are people willing to pay for, sort of thing. So it just wraps all of that up together. That's, that next little layer on top, which is really good.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Vaughan. And Renata May, I know this one is like one of your first classes today. What was the epiphany moment for you today?
Got to be the voice. I've struggled with what's the difference between the niche and the market and the marketing and the business, and it's kind of like overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. So to have that clarity through voice, as a writer and a poet and a storyteller and an artist, it's kind of, where does that fit into marketing? Mm-hmm. Where does that fit into marketing? But when you turn it to where you want to go as an affiliate of laptop lifestyle dad, and as a developing health advocate, it's going to work perfectly for me, and I'm really grateful for that.
Love it. Yeah, and that's the purpose of each masterclass that you show up to, right? You got to think of these classes as just a piece to the puzzle, and you're building out a 1,000,000-piece puzzle, right? So this is why we need to show up on these classes, because each class that you show up is a new piece. It is a new piece. It's a new piece. And you start to come and you find yourself, oh, hang on, I've been doing this for a year. Now I've been on 52 classes where you've got 52 pieces to your puzzle. And now so that's where that connection and plugging in, that momentum is built off of getting that clarity in each time on each class. I love it. Well done.
Thank you.
Daryl, what about yourself, champion? What was the epiphany moment for you?
I've been having trouble breaking down my story, and I think the part where you mentioned there, having that two-way conversation and just going back and forth a bit, helping Taddy help me, help him help me. I think that's something I'm going to work on going forward this afternoon, is having those conversations to try and knuckle down on what I'm about.
Yeah.
So I can tell
Chat is only as powerful as the information that you give it. It's an input out tool. So, but sometimes you need to know what is the right questions to get it to ask you to bring out that information that you
I
need.
think that's the problem I've been having, is the right questions.
Yeah. And that comes from wisdom. That comes from experience. So, yeah, and that's what you're here for, right? Brilliant. And Celeste, what was the epiphany moment for you today? And you'll need to unmute yourself there, champion. Celeste, sorry, you're muted.
Okay, I did that on purpose, Jeff. No, I'm just kidding. What I really liked about today is it's all just starting to click for me.
Right.
I've heard this stuff before, but I was working on ChatGPT just before this class because of the trying to promote your 30-day thing, and can you pass this on to your people? I'm going to send you a little thing of what I wrote and you can critique it for me. But after listening to this, it might not be on target at all. I don't know. But that was kind of my moment. Like, I just thought, oh, okay, this is starting to make sense. And I know, like, in my origin and my story, I have to get a little more vulnerable. Like, I find like I'm just kind of thinking the same way all the time, but I need to dig deeper. And somehow, I'm a pretty closed person until I get to know somebody. So for me to put out, some of those things, I need to find a way to word it that.
Yeah. You need to find out a way
fits
that you're
me.
comfortable with it all, for sure. But here's the thing, right? When we get into this headspace of, fear, if you will, of what other people think about you and all that sort of thing, what I've come to find in this space is, unless it's damaging to your ecological health, right? Like it's your job, like you're a CIA spy and you can't share too much information, and it's going to the people, right? You want to make sure that you're being respectful of the information that you share. But that aside, most of the time that we don't share information, comes from a fear space of what people think about me and how I will be judged. And a lot of the time, what ends up coming when we're operating out of that energy and that space, in my experience, I found that it's because I'm trying to perform. I'm not trying to serve. I'm trying to get other people's approval, and I'm performing to that. And then that performance then leads into performance anxiety. And then that anxiety leads into that fear space. And what you think is how you show up, is what you will do, is the results that you will get. Think, do, have, right? So if you're thinking other people are judging you already before you start, well, what you do is going to come from that space, and the results that you have will be people judging you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I probably worry too much about that.
Yeah,
Like,
we all do. But there's some freedom. There's a lot of freedom in this space, and it doesn't happen overnight, by the way. It's taken me years to get to this comfortable space and how I show up. But it all started with a very similar conversation like this, and it's like an onion, right? It's like layers to it and depth to it.
yeah.
But it all starts with just putting yourself out there and putting your first foot forward, and really you get to a space where you just don't care what other people think anymore. You're not attached to that other opinion. And a really great book that I'm going to get you all to read that'll help with this is Mel Robbins' Let Them. Basically,
What is it called?
it's Mel Robbins is the author, and the title of the Let Them Theory. Now, the premise of the book is we can't control anybody. The only thing that we can control is our actions on how we show up, react, or respond. Right? So if that's the case, let them. If they want to judge me, let them. If they want to think I'm an arsehole, let them. If they want to think that I'm the best guy since sliced bread, let them. You know, whatever it is, let them.
Let them.
But here's
Okay.
the other parts of the premise of the story is it doesn't that's the starting point, but it doesn't end there. Because when we understand, you know, that people show up in the way that they show up and we just let them do what they need to do, so let them, we now need to ask ourselves the second question, let me. So let them, let me.
Let me.
Let me.
Yeah.
Because I can control how I react or respond, right? So let me.
Yeah.
How am I? So this person's judged me. Okay, let them. But let me. What am I going to do with that? Let me show.
I like that.
So let them, let me. Let them, let me. Let them, let me.
Yeah.
Really great book. I highly recommend everybody goes and reads it because that'll help you with
I like
it as well.
Okay. Thank
Cool.
you.
No, great. So, guys, this has been a brilliant coaching session. Thank you very much for today. We will call this up a wrap. I'll make sure that Jade and Dave get you the AI prompt packed out for you with the replay. This is week 2 of round 5. So this is just about setting the foundations. What we are actually moving towards on July 25th, Dave and myself are launching a 30-day content marketing mastery sprint. So the academy calls here are all about helping you to find your voice, right? Now we want to talk to you about how to help you to elevate your voice. Now you found your voice, you understand your story, your values, your mission, your vision. We want to give you the tools and the training to be able to be empowered to learn how to create content, whether it be story-based, written, audio, visual, video, whatever it is. You know, great graphics like Dave's got behind him or the caffeinated kangaroo. We're going to show you a 30-day sprint on how to create content to help you to elevate your voice. So that's what the 30-day content marketing sprint's all about. So it's $199 for those who want to jump in early with our early bird special. We've only got 20 spots at that price. Once they have gone, or the 14th of July, whatever comes first, the price is jumping up to $497, and that's all in US dollars as well. So you want to have, look, I really believe that everybody here is a really great foundation, and that these 30-day sprints, we're going to be starting to doing these 30-day sprints. And so the next one it's about elevating your voice. The next one will be about leveraging your voice. We'll do one about podcasts. We'll do one about, you know, how to use AI to create a book. We'll start creating these little 30-day sprints to help to sort of build on, be like Lego blocks to go to that next level. So, guys, thank you very much. Yes, question, go.
That's before we go. So is it gonna, like, is it good to put on top of what we're doing here?
Yes, everything is like a Lego block, right? And it's like a recipe to building a cake. So what you're doing here is it's all about the fundamentals around helping you to find your voice, you know, and so then we're building on that. Now, once you've got that, it's then that next how to create the content to help you to share your voice with the world.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So yeah, everything's about plugging into each other, and everything complements each other. So we're very we have a start and end in mind for each piece.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions before I go? So Daryl, just regarding that with the timings that line up. So yes, we're going to be doing 30 days of live content, but we're also building out these as a evergreen product. So once we've done it the first round, we'll repackage that and we'll then sell it at a higher price point. Once we've built the product out, then it sits there on our shelf, and it's like an evergreen product so when we find someone who needs to know how to do content marketing, right, you need that product, and we can just plug and play. So we're playing out the 12, the long-term vision here. So, and this is the way that I launch all my products, is we build them out as we go so we can serve our audience's needs in the time, and we can pivot and adjust. But the long-term game, the vision here is we start to build out a library, an archive point of all of these different programs that we can just plug and play where we need to. So coming back to your question there, if the timings line up for you and all that sort of thing, yes, this will be 30 days. It'll be live content. I think, Dave, we said we're going to do it at 7 o'clock every morning. Is that right? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's 7 o'clock our time. I mean, it's less.
6:30, I think.
Oh,
But the time conversion will be afternoon, evening on the US. But you don't have to show up live because each one will be built out as they would be for someone who comes into the program 18 months down the road, and they'll be able to go through and grab the replays or watch it at their own speed, that type of thing. Does that make sense?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It will be more fun if you come live.
Oh, there's always more fun when you jump on a live. You can see what you guys just experienced here today. You get that next level of support and Q&A, right? So
Yes, you'll need a few of those, Vaughan.
So if it's like, what did you say, 6:00 p.m. your time, or 6 o'clock 6:00 a.m. your time? So 6:00, that's 4:00 our time.
let me confirm. Yeah, so that was 6:30 a.m. our time. What time zone are you, Cheryl?
We're 12 hours before. In
That's
Michigan, we're 12 hours
You're
before
Eastern,
you.
Eastern time, so
Eastern, yeah.
yeah, it'll be 4:30 p.m. in the afternoons in your time.
Okay. Might be hard to make some of them, but
That's right. That's what I said. They'll be there for you to catch the replays and stuff as well.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else? Nope. Okie dokie.
That was good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Time. I'll talk to you all later, and have a great one. Bye for now.